Thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the last keynote of the day for the Tech and Money stage. Last but not least, I'd like to welcome Linus Neumann to the stage, and he's going to be discussing blockchain and Web3, kicking the hornet's nest. Please welcome Linus on stage. Thank you. Round of applause.
So that was quite a presentation. Comparing the web to the land ownership market, I could barely find a more sympathetic bottom-up market that we all like to be engaged in. I'm here to talk a little bit about where these Web3 marketers come from that we now meet at every conference. And I want to explain a little bit about their background and state of affairs. So the agenda will be the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'll start with the good, and that is an idea and idealism. Now, blockchains came up when the housing bubble crash made people doubt central banks, when the WikiLeaks payment blockade showed first signs of financial censorship, and that's when they said, hey man, we need a currency that is in our hand, that is decentralized, that nobody can interfere with, and that's something we now want to build. Now, from an information science and IT perspective, that is an interesting problem and a complicated problem, and they built a very nice solution to it. Now, since you're at a Web 3.0 conference, basically, I assume I don't have to explain blockchains to you, or do I? Just to remind you, I'll have one up here. Very simple, simple blockchain currency named Bitcoin. You put transactions or their checksums together, hash them until you have blocks. You take the hash or the checksum of the last block, put it into the next, and then you have proof against retrograde change. So that is nice. Now, putting this into the hands of many, you invent an idea called Bitcoin mining, and you call it a proof of work method. So you find a random number to put into the block to make the resulting hash look like a very determined or fulfill determined properties. Good, you know that. So that is also already the end of the good part. We get irreversibility. That is something that's very important to solve the double spending problem. And we get trust without a central instance. Both are really novel ideas in IT, and that's what made the blockchain such a beautiful idea. The problem is, all the security and the trust it is supposed to give us are actually against the user's interest. Ask one of these folks that are trying to find old hard drives with Bitcoin wallets on, in the trash or wherever they're looking for them. Right? This is not security in your interest. It's security against you. The price we pay for this beautiful system is storage costs, because the blockchain grows and grows and grows, and energy consumption, because people mine and we have an extreme waste of resources. So those are the two cost factors, mainly, that we have to invest for those two things. So this was put into life, and most people in IT said, well, that is a nice solution, and it is. I want that problem. So the search began for a problem that would actually require a blockchain, and as of now, the search was not successful. And there's a simple reason for that. You're doing it wrong. Innovation is finding solutions to problems, not problems to a solution. Let's go for the bad now. I already had a simple example of the security that these wonderful trust mechanisms give us. Somebody threw away 108 million Bitcoin. Of course, they didn't have that value at the time, but at least he understands there's no point crying about it. The problem is with blockchain and Web 3.0 technologies, Web3 technologies, people do not understand the concept. They fail to protect their key material, and they fall for dubious exchanges and scammers. Not that any are here. So blockchain security is really not in the interest of users. I I work as an IT security professional. I'm an active member of the Chaos Computer Club. Every week, I deal with people whose bank accounts have been robbed, right? So every once in a while, or most of the times, if they report to the bank fast enough, they get their funds back. This is not something that has to do with a lack of trust. This is the security and the safety that banks give us. I don't like banks. I don't like the economic system, but I do like to keep my own money, right? So I'd be much happier with my money in a banking account than in some blockchain where now I am completely all by myself responsible for the security of my funds and assets. So in doubt, I like to sue somebody, right? Not possible on the blockchain. And this is what actually creates trust. You know, you have marketing people being on the stage telling you like of the importance of trust, like we don't have any in this world, in a globalized economy. We can go to a court, we can resolve our issues. The one thing we do have is trust in people and not in technologies, and there's a good reason for that. Now, where did this idea Bitcoin get us? It's more than a decade old. Pretty much all that's being paid for by, or can be paid for by Bitcoin is crime. You can buy drugs. Not that big of a problem in the Netherlands, but I hear from other countries there is quite a market there. You can pay ransom, and you can do some serious money laundering. So that's good. I mean, you have 3 use cases. That is probably enough for a currency. And then you have speculation. So that means there are 2 users for Bitcoin. One of them, like the one group, has a constant demand for goods, and they pay in euro or USD or whatever their actual currency is. The reason is, or the result is, they don't care about the exchange rate. Doesn't matter. Bitcoin is up, Bitcoin is down. I'm buying this amount of drugs for this amount of euros, fine. So it's a transaction currency. The other people, the people that speculate, they are also interested in USD and euro, and they are interested in a volatile exchange rate. So in the end, you have a constant demand for the currency, and by increasing or decreasing the supply, you can have an impact on the currency value, and it goes up and down and up and down, and this is how you make money. And you know, if too many people sell their Bitcoin and they ruin your profits, you just tell them, hodl, right? Don't sell that, don't sell, prices will go up. As long as you don't sell, prices will go up. People slowly discovering economics. I said we'll go for the bad and then the ugly, but there's also the worse and the worst, so we have to go for that first. So do I need a blockchain? You may have seen this. One Visa transaction in kilowatt hours is 0.01486. One in Bitcoin is 2,264.93 kilowatt hours. That's about, I think, a week of a US-American household. That means probably a year of a Dutch household. So far, we now have a non-scaling payment system that allows only wire transfers. You can only send money, not pull in money from somebody. It provides security against the user's interests, but it's decentralized. Great. Now, looking at this, people thought, hey, we need to do something different than proof of work, because this obviously has failed, right? All the Bitcoin miners waste so much energy. One person of them gets to sign the block, so we need a proof of work system. So we have a less wasteful approach. We can do storage space, we can do early investment, but they're not solving the fundamental problem. There is a financial incentive needed to keep the system up. That means contributing to the blockchain is subject to reward and investment and subject to speculation, and the system must limit its overall supply and efficiency to keep prices up. So you want your blockchain to be to some extent inefficient, and that is either the most idiotic or the most genius idea in the history of scams, but it's a cartel either way. So the next challenge is they needed to be able to buy new things, right? So people could spend something on it. Now, one thing, just a short note, if you say an economy that is controlled by those who own most of the assets, this is not something we are looking for. We already have that, right? We don't really need that anymore. We have it in our life already. Thank you for proposing this solution to it. So now they needed to invent more use cases so people would buy their currencies. And then the most genius idea came up, which at the time I just face-palmed at, and I think I've never stopped ever since. At the moment, so in Bitcoin, all you have is assets and transactions, money, right? You have a Bitcoin, you can send it to somebody else. That's the only use case it has. So then they thought, hey, maybe we can put anything in a blockchain. Why don't we just put code in there in an irreversible public ledger? And everybody has to execute that code, and then we can create smart contracts. That's going to be fun. So here's the smart contract again. I mean, everybody can read the smart contract. I'm sure each of you have learned this language in school. So again, users don't comprehend them. You have transaction cost in the blockchain. And this is filling the blockchain whale's pockets, right? They invest early, buy the tokens cheap, and then you come along, have some kind of a smart contract, and your contract, in case there is any error in it, is irreversible. Now, nobody would go to a lawyer or a notary that promises that kind of shit. If you think legalese is a problem, which it is, have fun writing your smart contract. And it's beautiful. We're not getting rid of lawyers. We're just adding another class of experts to depend on, and that's going to be the coders for the smart contracts. Nice solution. Then eventually they went along and said, hey, we can build a decentralized autonomous organization built off contracts, because organizations are contracts, right? Wonderful. Started it, had a little bug in the code, lost 11.5 million ether, somewhere in the three-digit million range of euros. And they realized, shit, man, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. We have a bug in the code, and suddenly all our money is gone, and the blockchain is irreversible. Well, maybe we just reverse the blockchain and make it reversible and start from there again. So we create a hard fork. This is the one thing that blockchains are not supposed to do. This is the one thing they tell us we're supposed to trust in. Hey, don't worry, man, the blockchain is going to be fine. Unless our personal financial interest is at stake, because then suddenly there is a central instance that holds a vote, I wasn't asked, by the way, to then fork a blockchain and make something, make a whole list of transactions reversible again. So they basically had to redo the whole thing and kill a lot of transactions. Now, they broke the one promise they gave us on the first attempt to create a smart contract. And now they lure you into creating more smart contracts. I'm not sure I would try to work with these people. Again, find a real use case, real world use case. Sorry, I did the slides on the plane this morning. A real world use case that requires a smart contract. Again, we have a functioning global economy, right? Germany pays Russia for gas. There is no trust with Russia at the moment, and I think there shouldn't have been anyways, but it works. Even with entities that hate each other, there is no need as long as you have money and contracts. The world functions, and it functions well in the way it's supposed to function, or it wants to function. So they needed another idea to lure people into their blockchain, and they said, well, why don't we build non-fungible tokens? That's a nice thing, man. Digital proofs of possession, cryptographically signed, was possible about 20, 25 years ago already, but we can put it in the blockchain. Now they put it in the blockchain, and the beauty is, or like the reason they do it is so they can sell their Ether or Polkadot or whatever to you. They need use cases for the cryptocurrency, so they can trade it for actual money. They know they are sitting on a pile of bits that is essentially worthless. So they started selling off, the gifts of the internet. And the beauty of this is, again, they say they solve a trust issue, but now you have all this digital art by all kinds of artists sold by other people as NFTs, because they somehow forgot that, proving ownership or claiming ownership of something is something you need proof and trust for. So if I now create an NFT for something I didn't even create, it's not the blockchain that's going to say, Linus, you didn't take that picture. it's not the blockchain that's going to say, hey, man, you sold that for 20,000, you're a scammer, we want the money back. Perfect trust mechanism. So this cat sold for 690,000 euros at the time. I can still display it here for free. I mean, it shows you how fucking idiotic these people are. Then Sotheby's entered the stage. You should always be very, very careful when the experts, the worldwide renowned experts of inflating prices of random goods with extremely limited utility and material value enter the stage, right? Selling you something that is essentially absolutely worthless at the highest price that can be achieved in a so-called market, that's Sotheby's. And they immediately identified the potential of this thing. And you should always be careful when those guys enter the stage. So this NFT was sold for whatever, I don't even care. The Bored Ape Yacht Club was hacked, you know all that. Now, I'm a hacker, so I look at the technology of things. Let's see how well NFTs actually work. I mean, forget about the fact that there are so many blockchains that now try to have NFTs and try to allow you to have ownership certificates. The actual technology does not hash the asset it's referring to. So what Moxie did was created an NFT that when sold at OpenSea looks like this, and when sold on Rarible looks like this, although it's the same NFT. And if you actually look at it at home, it looks like this. And in a couple of years, it's probably going to look like this. So you have an ownership possession certificate for a URL that you don't even control. And you have once the content's changed, the blockchain is no proof what was there before. I mean, the blockchain, all they do is hash things. So it's inconceivable how they would even define a standard like that. But probably this was never about actually defining something useful. It was just about getting in money into the blockchain. So let's go for the worst. Buzzwords become budgets for states and businesses. So this is, I mean, before we had a couple of scammers, they came to the conference, it's fine, you know, you have them all the time. Now, states as central authorities, I mean, that's the one thing you have in a state, is a central authority. Say, hey man, we can have decentralized IDs in the blockchain, that's going to be fine. Or vaccination certificates. And that, of course, they realize they cannot provide an open blockchain, so they call it a private blockchain. It's not a blockchain. I'm sorry, it's not decentralized, it's nothing. But it has to be called a blockchain because they have some funds that they've dedicated to founding blockchains. Businesses all aim to be central platforms, as you heard before by the friendly gentleman trying to sell you land. Nobody, and already claiming you're going to make money off of that land because you can charge people when they fly over your land. What a sympathetic proposal. Businesses aim to be central platforms. Nobody is interested in competition. When they tell you you can compete or you have a level playing field here, it's because they just want money from everybody. Solution A to do this is mine significance tokens, then sell them off slowly to keep up their prices. Solution B is just call your database a blockchain and market its performance. So now we have a revival of simple blockchains that have to be renamed into hyperledgers or whatever. The thing is, they call it a blockchain, but decentralized blockchains are not in their interest. They will drag anything into their blockchains to keep the pyramid scheme running. They need new idiots to pay you some profit, so you tell other idiots that you made a profit off of it. Now, the next goal is to become the overall login platform, and that is where it gets ugly. And this is what is now being marketed as the Web 3. In the Web 3, let's look at the Web 2 first, or the Web and the Web 2. The Web and the Web 2 at least started with a decentralized distribution of resources. They were open standards, and everybody could use them for whatever they see fit. These Web 3 things start with an unequal distribution of resources. Here's a man telling you they're going to build an open standard for the web and asking for investors. Tim Berners-Lee didn't ask for investors, he wrote the fucking standard. Everybody could use it. Web and Web 2 have open use cases. They don't tell you if you have to make money off of it or whatever. Web 3 only knows ownership, payment, money, and commercialization. So payment is built into every transaction. And guess who makes the money off of each transaction? Because you have transaction fees. Those people that now look for investors. So they're trying to build a new infrastructure of the web where you have to pay for every single action you perform. And that is not a standard and not a good idea for a new society. Now, they advertise decentralization, and we've all witnessed the capital accumulation that we have in decentralization. It's not that the web protected us against Facebook, Google, and all these things, but it's a mechanism of the economy that we have monopolies, not of the internet as we build it. Ponzi schemes need infinite growth perspective to convince victims, and this is what's happening here. Promising to take nothing less than the whole internet is about the right level of ambition to get some idiot to invest in your company. Now, where do we end up with this? I'm not a very good economist, but I know that markets do not reward inefficiency in the long run. They just don't. So my hunch is most of this is going to go away eventually, but before, it's going to be a bit ugly. First of all, the only people you should not trust are Web3 marketing bros. Because blockchains do not provide trust. They provide irreversibility. And the example we just heard, Airbnb works because they are not a blockchain. They work because they have people that deal with your concerns. If you're being scammed on Airbnb, if there are hidden cameras and all the scandals they have, and all the problems they have, and all the means they need to protect you, so you can safely live in a stranger's house. They are not blockchain issues. They are fundamental trust issues and issues that, in essence, we solve with a functioning legal system. So I think where this goes, it certainly won't be pretty. Scenario one is the bubble pops late, as they do, a couple of years from now, see tulips, see the housing bubble, right? The line's going up, everybody joins the party, and I think bubbles only pop when they're really able to harm the whole damn economy of the world or of at least a big country. So that's scenario one. Scenario two is the blockchain dystopia. So say goodbye to taxation, say goodbye to preventing money laundering, say goodbye to preventing corruptions. None of these ideals that are now marketed to us will lead to an outcome that benefits society, except for those that think society is something to be monetized, and that every transaction should be paid for, and that you should own assets that other people pay you for. The monetization strategy is in the technology, and that is why it needs to be rejected. So please try to remember, blockchains are extremely inefficient by orders of magnitude. Virtually any problem has more elegant solutions without bullshit blockchains, maybe. Blockchain security is not protecting users' interests, quite the contrary. You would become dependent on yet another expert class, and that would be coders. And to you in the audience, you're either setting up or falling for a Ponzi scheme. I can only congratulate the former. So please don't say I didn't warn you. This is not the world we want to live in. And thanks for giving me the time to explain this.
Are there any questions?
I am very, very thankful for this applause. I was afraid there wouldn't be any.
Are there any questions for Linus before we go? We have 4 minutes for questions. Okay, in the front. You have 3 already. 4.
Yeah, that was very technical. Sorry, I didn't get everything. So should I buy Bitcoin or Ethereum? But on a serious note, is there at least anything like sharing with a group of friends something on a blockchain on a decentralized platform that can make use of it in a way that is not a Ponzi scheme or not a word that attracts investors while the technology has nothing to it? Do you think there's anything that we can make out of it?
I honestly don't think so. And the fundamental challenge is, essentially they provide a database, and this database needs to give some kind of financial incentive to those who provide it. And as soon as that is the case, as a fundamental idea of the technology, you probably can't do anything really good with it. I'm sorry. I've really looked for use cases, and people are always coming up with new ones. But if you look at the problem and look for the most elegant solution to it, you never end up with a blockchain. And that's exactly the thinking, right? People try to find problems for their solution, not solutions for their problem.
First of all, I think it would be great if you had a debate with the previous speaker. That would be really funny.
I think he left. I'm sorry.
But on my question, have you ever participated in any way in the blockchain scheme?
Yes.
And
How did it go?
Yeah.
Well, nobody that is invested in crypto is currently pretty happy, right? Well, I do own Bitcoin. I do own Ether. I have bought these long ago out of interest. But my Bitcoin wallet is public, and you can see that I spent what would now be significant funds on on goods of very little value. So full disclosure, I do own Ether and Bitcoin. Very limited amounts, nothing that would harm me when it crashes. And I assume, to be honest, there will be another spike because the crash is not big enough yet to ruin the economy. And they have to go there first, and they will.
Over here?
Thanks for the great talk. So if you've been to the startup stand, there's plenty of startups in that ecosystem, and I'm sure sitting here, plenty of people are working on what you're talking about. Why do you think those people are in it? Are they in it for the evil money, or are they blinded by the possibilities of it? And what should they do? What do you say to the people in the audience in the industry?
So for coders and hackers, these blockchain technologies provide really, really interesting problems. So this is pretty interesting work for people that are deep into information science. Even my colleagues work on pen testing blockchains, and they have political issues with these systems. Some of them do, but they are really, really awestruck by the new challenge that is there. And I think what we're witnessing here is a bit of the like an Icarus-type situation of computer scientists, because for developers and coders, because they see how inefficient the world works, and they think they can, get rid of lawyers, get rid of notaries, solve problems in 5 lines of code. And if you look at how most of this world functions, I also completely lose my mind. But I wouldn't get the idea to put all of this into a blockchain that has, in the end, the computing power of a Raspberry Pi. That would be the computing power of the Ethereum blockchain. So that is also not really a solution. The other is, all investors are now interested in, so for about a decade, nobody knew how to become the next Google or the next Facebook. They were really far out there, and venture capital didn't really have anything to believe in. So now people come and say, hey man, this is going to change everything. So investors pump huge money into blockchain companies. And that's becoming a problem, because they're getting, getting most of the talent to then build technologies that are, at the moment, not particularly helpful.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Linus. Please give him a round of applause again. Thank you.